I was watching a classic horror film the other day. One thought hit me. What was the first ever monster? Surely there must have been a time when cavemen came up with this. Today we're talking about the past to explore some of the earliest monsters that have haunted humanity. I've been pondering, what is the oldest monster? First off, in 1939, archaeologists in southern Germany discovered fragments of mammoth ivory at a cave site. World War II interrupted their work and the pieces were stored away. About 30 years later, an archaeologist began painstakingly piecing the shards together. He eventually discovered that it was all part of the same Paleolithic figurine. The figure turned out to be a statuette about 31 centimeters long, and it was dated to between 35 and 40,000 years old. Once the pieces were assembled, it was revealed to be a figure of both human and non-human features. This is the figure known as the Lowen Mensch or Lion Man. It's a regal-looking figure with an upright posture but with a menacing feline head. It stands like a human, two-footed, with arms at its sides and this menacing head of a big cat. We can only speculate as to the Lion Man's true meaning. Was it a deity? A punishing creature? Some kind of animal spirit? It's easy to imagine ancient people seeing an apex predator as a god of the wilderness, wielding power over other animals. But what's really striking is the sheer effort that went into creating this artifact. It would have been an extreme sacrifice for people likely living on the edge of starvation. It took resources, time, energy, and it wore down their flint tools. And these weren't people who had specialists who could take the time to create something like this. It wasn't just a toy. It was something of importance, and the original artifact shows signs of excessive handling, indicating that it may have been passed around in a ritual of some kind. Now, who were the people that created it? Most believe they were modern humans, though it's important to note that Neanderthals also coexisted in the area at the time. While it's not impossible that Neanderthals could have created similar items, it's more widely accepted that the Lion Man was made by anatomically modern humans. We also find other ancient artifacts such as the Venus of Whole Fels, which is a feminine figure with exaggerated breasts and hips that may be tied to fertility. They were created around the same time period, but the key difference is that while the Venus is a depiction of something real, the Lion Man is a human fused with a beast. As one archaeologist said, it shows early man moving from his immediate world to an imaginative world. The people who created this artifact were imagining something that was beyond their immediate experience. It's likely that the Lion Man represents a fusion of human and animal, a step into the unreal. According to a curator at the British Museum, the Lion Man is the oldest known representation of a creature that does not exist in nature and the world's oldest monster. Not necessarily evil, but an imaginary creature. It would have been something to inspire awe, a blend of wonder and fear. Life at this time would have been full of uncertainty, dependent on hunting and gathering, so you might expect to find those elements in their imagined beings. It's important to ask, what is the head of this creature? It's not a common lion. Experts believe it's the head of an extinct cave lion. It's fascinating that we have a partial likeness of one extinct animal carved from the tusk of another, created by a species that likely contributed to the extinction of both. The cave lion, Panthera leospelea, was the largest cat that ever lived, 25% larger than modern lions and bigger than today's largest tigers. They were up to 11 feet, 6 inches, or 3.5 meters in length. These are not the size of your house cat, these are huge, they're almost the size of a horse. The predatory gaze itself is terrifying. If you imagine ancient times and the rare occasions when you would make eye contact with one of these creatures and live to tell the tale, how powerful that experience would be. It would be like a religious experience, feeling like you had entered a higher plane. The Lion Man may have been the first lion-humanoid hybrid in human beliefs, but it would be far from the last. Egyptians had several lion-headed deities like Sekhmet and Tefnut, and in Hinduism, there's Narasimha, literally man-lion in Sanskrit. Some online believe that the Lion Man is a depiction of Narasimha, but in essence it is the same concept, a humanoid figure with the head of a lion. And while the Lion Man is stately and serene, other depictions of lion-human hybrids are not so peaceful. The Hindu depiction of Narasimha is often portrayed in a grisly scene, ripping apart a demon. It's quite the contrast. Then there are the reverse hybrids, the Sphinx, with a lion's body and human head, the Manticore, Chimera, and some dragons. Another intriguing figure is the Leontocephaline from the mystery religion of Mithridism, a naked man with a lion's head, for wings, and a serpent wrapped around him. Much of the meaning behind it is lost to time, but I would love to know what it meant. It's intriguing to imagine that happening to our modern religions. Imagine if you were an archaeologist in the future trying to piece together the meanings of our religious art, pop culture icons, and various hand signs. This brings us to the question of whether some ancient depictions of hybrid creatures are actual hybrids, or simply humans wearing animal garments. The horned god or sorcerer of the Cave of Trois Frères is a humanoid figure with the head of a stag or elk. Its interpretations vary. Thinking about the Lion Man, I wondered about the very first monster. There had to be a first time a human, or a human ancestor, formed a mental picture of a horrifying creature that did not exist in nature. It wasn't just a known predator made bigger. It was an unholy being. The claws of a crab on the body of a lion. This requires a cognitive leap. Even if you consider something like the bicameral mind, there would still need to be a place where this image comes from. Speaking of the bicameral mind, I should make a video about this. Let me know in the comments section below if you're interested. Back to our first monster story, at some point it stops speaking through just humans and animals and starts speaking through a human-animal hybrid. Many of our monsters are hybrids of threatening creatures, like the alien facehugger. These monstrous hybrids strengthen and transmit our fears. If babies are typically kept off the ground for their first 6 months, they won't be seeing many of these creatures. Even if babies don't directly encounter these creatures early on, evolutionary psychology suggests that certain fears might be hardwired into us for survival, like lion-headed humans and other monstrous beasts. A monster like Medusa, in Greek myth, is part of that world. She's not breaking any laws. But the monsters of horror breach the norms of ontological propriety presumed by the human characters in the story. The monster is an extraordinary character in our ordinary world. This distinction is important, as a monster in a myth may be different and less terrifying than a monster of horror that haunts the woods. These creatures that violate our culturally established categories of existence are found to be repulsive and distressing. This is the category confusion model. A lion, a man, but a man with a lion's head, that breaks the rules. While this model works for some creatures, is it really possible that our experience of monster horror could be cognitive? Do we really have to think about a monster to find it scary? You don't have to think hard to find Jason Voorhees terrifying, yet you can say that he's an unnatural thing. He is either a dead person killing people or an unrealistically relentless humanoid killer. That terror is deeper than cognitive category analysis. It feels similar to seeing something flying at your face. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is probably the oldest superhero story ever written, there is a monster of untamed power of nature takes on a terrifying form. Humbaba. With the head of a lion, scales like a dragon, and a roar that shatters the earth, he is a terrifying guardian appointed by the gods. His presence is a warning, and his defeat is a mark of unparalleled power. Appointed by the gods to safeguard the sacred cedar forest, this monstrous guardian stands as a formidable obstacle to human ambition. His presence embodies the inherent conflict between mankind's desire to dominate and the wild, untamed forces of the natural world. Gilgamesh and Enkidu, driven by a thirst for fame and the desire to prove their strength, embark on a journey to the cedar forest. They intend to cut down the sacred trees, an act that challenges the gods. With Humbaba defeated, they proceed to cut down the cedar trees, fulfilling their original goal. This is an act of defiance against the natural order and the divine will. The killing of Humbaba sets in motion a series of events that eventually lead to the gods' wrath, highlighting the dangers of overreaching human ambition and disrespecting the divine order. I had never read about this idea of horror blindness before. A question to help us understand the origin of monsters is, why do we keep creating them? Why can't we stop making monsters even if they make us feel fear? Maybe we like to fear, or maybe we like something else that comes with it. Maybe fear has a hidden cousin. There is a woman known only as SM who has bilateral amygdala lesions, and this means she has an extreme fear deficiency. Researchers tested her with haunted houses, horror movies, snakes, and spiders. These experiments showed that what would normally be horrifying stimuli was attention-grabbing but did not cause avoidance behaviors. Instead, it manifested itself as an attraction. Researchers took SM to a haunted house. When the hidden monsters tried to scare her, she reacted by smiling or trying to talk to them. In contrast, she had an unusual inclination to approach and touch the monsters. In this condition, where there are no normal avoidance behaviors, things that would normally make you fear aren't neutral, you find yourself attracted to them. Like when you see a cool monster design in a film or book. What role did these types of arousal play in the creation of the Lion Man figurine? The feeling of this isn't part of what I normally see. Perhaps when the figure was passed around, it was a novel experience. Maybe it didn't have a name or a purpose in the magical world around them. We often assume it had a religious significance, but what if it was more like us watching a horror movie or going to a haunted house? You can have a visceral reaction to an image of a Hindu god without knowing anything about Hinduism. The Lion Man could have been part of a religious belief, or simply a thrill. A simple "don't go swimming in that creek" would make kids more like to sneak to play in a creek late at night, so adults came up with "don't go swimming in that creek" because of the creature that will drown you. This could be a plausible explanation for the emergence of monsters in human history. They could have emerged around the same time as language as a social cohesion and value instilling technique. They're there to get people to believe things that would be hard to believe otherwise. And monsters are often tied to boundaries. Cross the boundary and face the monster. The wood are where the monsters live, we told our kids. We don't have a definitive answer about when the first monster arose, but it's plausible that their roots are in social teaching. I think we've given everyone tremendous food for thought in unraveling the meaning of the Lion Man and what it means to people today. So what could the Lion Man have been teaching? Like an ancient god of the hunt. The world has a certain amount of chaos. Some days you'll go into the cave and you will face the Lion Man and maybe you'll walk away, but maybe not. Some days, the Lion Man eats you. That's the end of this episode. If you enjoyed diving into the world of ancient monsters with me, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification as well for more explorations into the weird and wonderful. Thanks for watching.